All right. Hello, everyone. This is Hear About It podcast. I've got my little write up. I've got a couple paragraphs I'm just going to read out real quick for our guests today, Eric Powell and Harold Schechter, a great creative team, new creative team for the nonfiction, based on a true story. Did you hear what Eddie Gein done? All right, here we go. Welcome to Hear About It podcast. I'm your unreluctant host, Will PB. If you're just joining us, which is totally reasonable, I've been talking to more and more comic book creators. I want that to be kind of a thing, so I've decided to put all the comic book stuff under its own banner, Dark Vulture Series. Today, we're talking about the new graphic novel from Albatross Funny Books. Did you hear what Eddie Gein done? It is the legitimately shocking story of the killer Eddie Gein, whose likeness has apparently been used for dozens of horror movies, including Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock. The book is haunting. It is not my usual reading material. I'm literally about to read a book by Marvel called Avengers versus Squadron Supreme, but the book is very good. All right, I am here with artist team of Harold Schechter and Eric Powell. Harold Schechter is a professor at Queens College of the City University of New York. He has written over a dozen books, from historical true crime to humor and popular culture to mystery novels. Harold co-wrote this new graphic novel about the Eddie Gein tragedy with excellent artwork from co-writer and artist Eric Powell. Eric Powell is the creator of comic book titles such as The Goon and now Hillbilly. He set up his own shop, Albatross Funny Books. Thanks to both of you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. So I imagine literally anyone who hears about this book wants to know how you two met and decided to get started on this crazy project. It's a 220 page book in stark black and white about Eddie Gein, who did apparently, he's the likeness that was used for movies like Halloween and so on and so forth. If I'm correct there.
I think
no,
you're
well, yeah. Well, in a general way, I mean, Psycho began the whole cycle of slasher movies. So in that sense, horror fans consider him the grandfather of modern gore. But yeah, I mean, he was directly the inspiration for Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the Buffalo Bill character in Silence of the Lambs. So.
Yeah. So really, how did you guys meet? I mean, how did this idea even get rolling?
Well, I've been a huge fan of Harold for a long time, and he's been my favorite true crime author. I was driving through rural Wisconsin in the middle of a book tour, and being very familiar with Gein and Harold's book Deviant, my mind started kind of going with the surroundings, and I started getting the idea that it would be kind of interesting to do a story based on his isolation, because I was, I'm in the middle of this atmosphere.
Right.
But again, being very familiar with Harold's work, I was like, I can't do anything better than what he's already done. So what's the point? So a couple of weeks went by, and then I thought, well, maybe I could reach out to Harold and see if he would want to collaborate on something, because maybe in that time since he's written the book, he had come on new information or gotten new perspectives or something. So I tracked down his agent and was not expecting to hear back at all. It was just, I'll just see what happens. But much to my surprise and joy, he ended up being a huge comic fan and was familiar with my work too. So he was really eager to collaborate on it.
Yeah, that's terrific. And I really like that note that, you don't know if you're going to hear back from Harold, because the more I talk to people in this field, it really is not everybody does know each other. And, sometimes you just you don't know what they're going to think of you, which I think is super interesting. So Harold, what was it like to basically sort of try to tell this story for the first time? You know, you wrote this book, Deviant. It's one of your first books, as far as I know, and you know, then you had to go back to the well in this new medium, the graphic novel.
Mhm.
What was that like?
Yeah, well, it was a great pleasure for me. I was a lifelong comic book collector and fan, even an aspiring comic book artist at one point.
Oh wow.
Huge collection. I just saw something yesterday online about how much the amazing stories that Spider-Man first appeared in has just sold for. I couldn't even look at the article because I used to have them. But anyway,
Right, right, right.
but anyway, yeah. As Eric said, I was a fan of the Goon. I just regard him as this, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, comic book artist of our time. I mean, he just does this amazing classic comic book art. So yeah, I jumped at the chance to work with him. We had a very, very easy collaboration, in the sense that, we had somewhat different ideas of what we wanted the book to be and what direction we wanted it to go, but we would talk it out. This was at the height of the pandemic, so all
Right,
our conversations happened the way ours is happening now on Zoom.
right.
And I wrote a version in the form of a movie script, and then Eric did significant revisions,
Right, right.
and rewrites. He cast it into comic book format, sent it back to me. There was some back and forth. We had some discussions about different changes we might want to make. And then I turned it over to him to do most of the hard work. So,
Right, right, yeah.
um, yeah. And, he would send me pages and panels every now and then that I was totally blown away by, as I have been by the finished product. So, yeah, for me, it's been an unalloyed delight.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm a little all over the place here with my questions, but I mean that's a perfect segue. Um, Eric, I mean, you know, I've never been to art school, but your art is obviously fantastic in this, and it does seem to be a departure from maybe like, I mean, you know, the Goon is gray tones and stuff as well, but this is just total black and white. And how much of this was sort of inspiration, and how much was maybe pushing yourself out of any sort of comfort zone?
Well, I think as far as the approach to the actual like uh, physical techniques of the art, I tried to steer away from uh, cartooning too much. I mean, I'm not a photorealistic artist, so I mean, there's always going to be a little cartooning to everything I do. But um, dealing with this subject matter, you definitely don't want to lean too heavily into that. And as far as black and white goes, very early on, as I was sketching stuff out and everything, I just um, and started thinking about the way that I wanted the book to be presented visually. There was no question it had to be in black and white,
Right.
just from the aesthetic of all the source material I was looking at. Was from the 50s, so it was all black and white, um, and then also, of course, Psycho was shot in black and white, and there's a big connection there. Uh, so yeah, it just didn't feel right. I thought about it in color, and I thought about doing it in muted colors and tones, and it just didn't seem right at all to do it in any other way than black
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So how long did this book take? You're doing it remotely, right? Yeah.
from start to finish. I think it took about a year from when we first started discussing it.
Yeah,
Wow.
you're, very
Okay.
correct. Um, one when you small modification of your introduction. I'm now a retired professor, so yeah, so I have a lot more time on my hands than Eric does. So Eric, Eric's running a business. He's doing this other stuff.
Saw that, yeah.
So so he, his schedule, he really had to fit in a lot of stuff. So I mostly just had to fit in time to go through the Call of Duty franchise on my PlayStation.
So okay, wow, yeah, like Harold, like you've sort of like you have a long history of working in true crime, but you've also got mystery novels, and you've got a couple of comedy books, right? Sort of like just like like sort of satirizing male culture, and there's a huge theme in this book of sort of like like repressed sexuality, and like normally like we have the benefit of sort of making light of that in our culture, with comedy books like yours. Like, I well, that's not really a perfect segue, honestly. Like I just sort of threaded that together. That was maybe a mistake, but when you right. So like, you have other hobbies, right? You have like, you play video games, which I honestly didn't expect. I know that's naive. But like, and you write comedy books, and you have a life in Queens, New York. And like, so how do you sort of really choose it? How do you choose a project? And then once you've found like sort of a niche like true crime, how how and when do you decide to deviate from that?
Well, the books you're referring to, I was writing those particular books, the humor books. I was in a collaboration with a cousin of mine named David Everett, now deceased. That was very early on in my writing career.
Oh wow.
For 42 years, I was a professor of American literature at Queens College. And I began to write commercial books almost as soon as I first started teaching, largely to supplement my meager academic income.
Right.
I had a wife, 2 kids. So I was at the beginning, well, I had to write a certain number of scholarly books to get tenure and to get promoted. But I was writing books about whatever interested me at the moment. And whatever I thought was commercially viable. So one point with my cousin Dave, I wrote a book. It's actually a beautiful kind of coffee table book called Film Tricks, Special Effects in the Movies. This is right before the CGI revolution. And when I was working on the horror chapter, I came across the fact that Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which were my 2 favorite horror movies, were both inspired by the same, guy, Ed Gein. And, very little had been written about Gein at that point. So I pitched the idea to my editor. That became my first true crime book, Deviant, which I actually thought of as not so much true crime as true horror, because I was interested in the way certain criminals are transformed into these kind of folklore monsters in the culture, Gein being the preeminent one. Anyway, Deviant sold well enough that my editor encouraged me to pursue that particular genre of writing.
Right.
So mostly, well, in terms of nonfiction, ever since then, I've primarily been writing historical true crime. I've also written, I think about 9 novels, I guess.
Wow.
3 of them collaborations with my younger daughter, who goes by the pen name Lauren Oliver, who's a writer.
Right. I did a little research, so I saw a video of you 2 together. That was cute.
So but again, historical true crime really became my métier, as they say. So.
All right, right on. So let's talk about like the two of you working together a little more, because you both have like huge bodies of work, you know. So were there any instances, like say, you know, you're telling the story of Eddie Gein, sorry, taking basically it's known that he killed at least two people, basically, right? Eddie Gein. So like, and then there's some mystery of what else he did or didn't do. Um, so you're sort of translating the story for comic book, and I do want to mention the dialogue in this book is excellent. You know, like there's no way you could imagine you could know exactly what they said in every of these scenes, but you know the way you guys wrote the dialogue for these different characters, it really does kind of, you know, it feels real. You know, you can really that you almost think that probably is what they said. You know, like what these two police officers said, or even what like Eddie said to his mother at one point. You know, even though like like it says in the book, the only one who knows really is Eddie. So so you know, you're sort of you wind up with this really complete package, you know, like um but how did you guys sort of handle, were there anything, were there like bumps, or like was it smooth sailing, or did you guys maybe one or the other dig your heels in on a certain story point, or like even something cool that someone said?
No, I think we were pretty much on the same page
Hmm.
throughout the process. I think from Harold's first draft, he had a kind of different uh, angle that he was shooting for than what I was envisioning, and then we kind of like worked that out and went, uh, you know, kind of came together on it. But I mean, it was not by any means, you know, confrontational or anything. It was just kind of like, hey, maybe we should pull it more in this direction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as far as the dialogue goes, I can only speak personally, but it's just from finding, you know, really trying to uh, get the character, and then once you understand the character and their perspective and where they're coming from, even when it's psychotic,
Right.
uh, you can you can write, you know, believable dialogue. But we also pulled, I mean, we did a lot of research. Of course, Harold has done a massive amount of research,
Right.
and so we pulled, you know, as much you know, direct quotes as we could. But again, you know, most of this is taking place in the farmhouse where, you know, there's no way of knowing what they were actually saying. We just had to go with what we thought the characters would how would react to a situation.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So
Uh, just let me interject. Um,
absolutely.
you know, Eric writes amazing dialogue. You know,
Hmm.
as you know, Goon. So I sent a copy of the book to a very good friend of mine, who's a writer herself, and she wrote back the dialogue on pages. Well, she said it's sublime.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
who was this exchange, Eric? It was the one where the two reporters are driving a plane field and talking about where they're going to be staying.
Right.
So I said, well, thank you. You know, Eric's kind of an amazing writer of dialogue. And she wrote back said, you mean you didn't write that?
Ouch.
So I said, well, no, Eric wrote that. He's like amazing. Anyway, so
So
now she
right.
her opinion of me has definitely, you know, dropped a couple inches, but you know, in terms of Eric and stuff. So
That's funny. Yeah, you would think the collaboration would have been good for you both, right? Like opinion wise. Yeah, like I will say, you know, like my I read it and wow, yeah, it's really not like the normal thing that like I personally read, and it was a great opportunity to sort of like stretch out a little bit as a reader. And the dialogue is sublime, and I particularly liked the scene where the cop sort of corners Eddie Gein, you know, like basically tricks him into admitting that, you know, eh, like he killed this woman, Barbara Warden, right? And Bernice, yeah. I just double checked. I literally was like reading over the book. So sorry about that slip, but yeah. Um, yeah, that dialogue, and just obviously the dialogue between like Eddie and his mother, and that whole family upbringing. Um, you know, it's it's really something else. You know, like when you watch like one of these like murder shows, as they're called now, you know, you sort of um you know, you get used to like all like the dark corners, and like, you know, like, and the killer was just waiting, and like stuff like that. And this is the first time where I was reading a book like this, where I was actually like, oh, I actually, you know, like, this sort of like killer didn't sort of, you know, he had a hard life, it seems, when he was growing up, you know, like, and his decision making would be impaired, you know. So it's like, I've never really felt that way before reading serial killer literature, you know, like, that's a real feather in the cap for this one. And so we sort of covered everything pretty major on this. But Eric, you know, like, especially talking to comic book artists, and I have comic book artist friends, what was your work schedule and process on this book? Um, that's kind of like the secret everyone wants to know, you know?
Yeah, as Harold said before, you know, my time was being pulled in 100 different directions, so I was it was really all over the place. Uh, it's hard for me to have a set schedule these days because something pops up and I have to handle it, you know.
Hmm.
Um, so it was really just trying to, you know, um, trying to get the busy work out of the way, and then working as much as I could, as much as was physically possible on this book, because I mean it's two drawing, you know, 200 pages of comic art is not an easy thing.
No.
I mean, your average trade paperback, you know, is what, 100 pages of content maybe. Um,
Wow.
so uh, yeah, there at the end, I mean, when we were, it came down to the wire, you know, as far as like getting to the printer and everything. Um, I was working, you know, it's around the clock. So it
Right.
was, yeah, finishing it up. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the final product.
Right. So when you came down to the wire, you know, how wiry was it? Do you mean literally
Well,
there's
it's not like you know, I was drawing the day before it went to the printer or something like
Mhm.
that, because there's a lot of steps to the process, you know. There's, you know, scanning the art, cleaning it up, lettering, you know, and all those things. And
Right.
this, we didn't have to deal with color on this one, but still there's you know, corrections with the grayscale. You know, you want um, the pages to be set up correctly where it's not too dark or not too light. Um, and then there was a lot of stuff that we went back and forth with the printer and the book designer, you know, making sure everything was formatted correctly. And uh, so we were definitely working on the book up until, you know,
Yeah.
the
Right.
day was going to press, you know.
So I would love to ask a couple questions about your company, Albatross Funny Books. You know, like, because I've obviously known about Goon for a while, but I looked at the website for Albatross Funny Books. I mean, there's a lot of like fun looking books on there. You do have a book by Brandon Smalls, apparently creator of Metalocalypse. Please, just any anecdotes that you have about Brandon Smalls, like,
Well, we did a I met Brendan through I was a fan of the show. This is funny. It's kind of the same way that things happen with Harold. I was just a fan of the show, and I was thinking about funny things that I could do with the Goon, because I'm always wanting to do something a little, weirder, out of the norm. And I thought it would be funny to do a crossover with Metalocalypse, because it's just such a random unexpected thing that didn't make any sense whatsoever. You have the Goon, which is this kind of dark fantasy in a Depression era world, and then you have a cartoon show about
right.
the world's greatest death metal band.
Death metal band, yeah.
And I loved the characters on that show and the writing. I thought it was hilarious. And so I don't remember exactly how this came about, but someone knew someone at Cartoon Network, and actually John Schnepp, who is no longer with us. He was a big Goon fan, and we had reached out, and he said, "Oh, he was telling Brendan, you got to do this. The Goon is great." And there was no monetary value in it. They could have just said, no, what are we going to get out of it? No, because, comparing comic books to television is, it's ridiculous. There's you're not going to get any monetary gain out of it. But Brendan and John were both of the mindset that this sounds fun, let's do it. So we did the crossover. And then I just known Brendan since then, and a brilliant guitarist and musician. And I was listening to his kind of side project, Galacticon, and how it felt very like a theme album. And so I contacted him and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing a comic based on Galacticon?" And he was really excited about doing that. So we kind of developed an art team and everything, and got that going. And it was one of the first books that we published, so I was pretty proud of it.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I saw that in passing. And sometimes when you see something cool, you're either like saving it for a rainy day, or you're just like, no, there's no way, like I can't handle this or something like. But I like that. I can't wait to pick up that book. That's gonna be great. I am also curious how you got a hold of Tank Girl, because have the rights to that just been all over the place, or how did that?
Well, they've like the Goon has, they've jumped around from a few different publishers. I mean, that's just the way it is with indie comics, and the volatility of the industry. But we Brett Parson, who he did some Goon issues for us. He's an amazing artist, amazing cartoonist, and he had been drawing Tank Girl for a while. So they were looking for a new home, and he suggested us. So we said, "Hey, let's do a series and see how it goes." So we did the King Tank Girl series, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, terrific. I'll have to pick that up too. Yeah, I'm a solid Tank Girl fan. I mean, I don't know all the characters and stuff, but it's got quirks, it's got action, and that's pretty much what you want. So Harold, you're in this world now, right? You've officially written a comic book. I mean, you could potentially do another one. Do you think about that? And do you ever think about, I mean, were you ever kind of like, oh, maybe after this one I'll write a superhero book, or like anything like that? Did you think any of those thoughts?
Well, I don't consider myself. I consider myself the co-writer of the Eddie Gein book.
Right, of course.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
no, probably at some point in my life. I mean, I'm sure at some point in my life, because again, I was a very, very serious collector of Silver Age Marvels when they weren't yet considered Silver Age, because I was collecting them when they were just coming off the stand.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping Eric and I will be able to continue our collaboration. I would love to do that. But in terms of my just, I mean, I know writers, Michael Chabon, there are these various writers who go on to, write issues of Spider-Man.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have any aspirations at this point in my life in that regard. But again, I'm hoping to be able to continue my collaboration with Eric.
Well, so you said it. You're continuing your collaboration. Is there something else going to maybe happen, or?
We have some ideas for a few things.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty wild that you guys feel that way. I just saw like on Instagram, the Eddie Gein graphic novel and its slipcase, right? You're releasing it in 3 books. That's pretty cool that you guys want to kind of keep at it. That's really cool. It's always nice to hear, a creator relationship going well, to be honest. Like I think people have become a little too focused on the fights, and there are some, and they're serious, but that's not how it's supposed to be, right? It's usually more like this. So I'm very, very pleased to hear sort of your guys' take on all of that. Yeah, you guys pretty much nailed it. I guess I should have expected that. It's probably not your first rodeo in terms of an interview. But do you guys have any sort of closing remarks about this project? Or, or are you just sort of on to the next? Like how are you feeling, Ted?
No, I'm just incredibly proud of it.
You're just really proud of it. Yeah, cool. Eric?
Yeah, same. I'm really proud of the book and the experience of creating it, and the fact that it's doing so well. Can't say much more than that.
I'm glad to hear it's doing well. I mean, that is, yeah, I just I read it and I really enjoyed it, and I can really see how people are connecting to it. So congratulations, guys. And I'm sure some people are wondering, I am gonna try and grill Eric Powell a little bit about the Goon movie. I'm just gonna hit stop on this, and we'll have a separate clip, and I'll see what we get, and I'll include a link. Thanks very much, guys. And we're just gonna take a quick intermission, and then we'll see what can happen in terms of the Goon movie in 2021.